Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Post-Dramatic Stress. I'm joined again today by my wonderful co-host, Isabella Jacqueline, who I lovingly call Bella. Hi Bella, how are you going?
I'm very good, and I'm mortally offended that I'm still not included in your intro, Charlotte.
I know.
I mean, this is episode 12.
I think it's official. I think Bella is a part of the furniture and you're officially my regular and ongoing co-host. So look forward to that next week, a new intro with Bella included, and we'll make it extra fireworky.
Overwhelmed, but today...
Yes, today we have another wonderful person sitting with us at the moment, and her name is Annie Murtagh-Monks. Hi Annie, how are you going?
Hello, how are you both?
Good.
Two gorgeous women to sit with.
Or three, you might say. We're super excited. I'm super excited. I don't know about you, Bella. I'm just...
Very excited. We've both trained with Annie, so we have this sentimental connection happening.
Yes.
Plus, she's like she's going to tell her about herself, because she's going to introduce herself way better than we ever could.
She is. We're going to get Annie to introduce herself in a minute. If you don't know Annie and you're in Perth, I would be surprised. But if if not, you're about to find out who she is and why it's so important to listen to what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about things like the casting of actors. We're going to talk about diversity in film, and we're going to talk about something that's quite important at the moment and previously to now, dealing with intimacy on set as an actor. But first of all, Annie, tell us about you. Who are you as a human, and what do we need to know about you?
Wow. Well, me as a human, I suppose in a nutshell, I started my working life as an actor. And worked professionally, went to NIDA, did a 3-year acting degree there, worked as an actor, fell in love with a West Australian, moved to Perth, and I told him for 2 years only, and that was 31 years ago. I fell in love with Perth as well.
I'm so glad you did.
I was lucky for us. Out of love with Perth, but you came here.
No, I love Perth. It's a special and unique Western Australia. We grow very talented actors here too, and I was working as an actor on one of the television series that were being produced, and I was playing a lead role in it. I was also hired as acting coach on it, and the television production company asked me to cast their next TV series. And at that stage, as an actor, I wasn't looking for a change in career, but I gave it a go, and it went well. And the 26 episode series I cast ended up being successful, and it went into 3 lots of 26 eps, and they asked me to keep casting more things. So I took myself off the market as an actor, became a casting director, and continued as an acting coach, and have been doing that now for 30 years.
Forever.
So yeah, that's why people know me, because I'm old and I've been doing it a long time.
Because you're one of the few people that are here for us in Perth as Perth creatives.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
That's really special.
Believe in fate, but that almost sounds like that was just meant to be. Like your pathway was just. I love it when things just.
It was all just building to the same point.
Yeah. What's the word? Serendipitous.
Yeah.
Is that the word?
Serendipitous, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I think it is. And I'm really grateful, because I know when I first moved here, I kept seeing so many talented actors working in theatre, but at that stage, the casting was all done out of Sydney or Melbourne by casting directors who were very talented but were unaware of the actor's skill of actors here in Perth for the most part. And a lot of the actors at that point, because they only tended to act in theatre, when they had the opportunity to audition or screen test for a film or television role, they would often give a theatre-sized performance, and therefore they wouldn't get cast. And it was a kind of chicken and egg situation, which was another reason why a director who was a mate of mine, he had been studying at the Australian Film, Television and Radio School at the time that I was finishing at NIDA, and then I ended up working and acting in their short films. He had moved to Perth as well, and we both decided that it would be wonderful if actors here understood more about directors' skill and directors understood more about the actor's craft.
Yes.
And that's when we started way back in 1992, PAC screen workshops, which you two have come to
Yes,
and
we
have been going ever
Yes.
since.
And I'm
Proud.
coming next weekend.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Damn, you're getting one up on me? This is not fair.
I am.
Not happening.
Tell us a bit about that. What is the Perth Actors Centre? What is PAC?
Well, because we both at the pub complained that directors don't understand actors and actors didn't understand directors, we decided to run a course where we brought directors, filmmakers and actors together into the one workshop. And we did that as a one-off 10-week course. But it had such an impact on the people who did it that many of them kept collaborating. And they went on and made short films that got into the New York Film Festival. And a lot of those original people contacted me and said, oh, can you do more of these? And then by that stage, Ross Hutchins was my colleague who co-founded the PAC workshops with me. He had moved and was working for Screen West, so he couldn't do it. And he said, you go ahead and keep running these. And so I did. And so I just run them when my work schedule allows. And I still lecture at WAPA too in screen acting and have done that since 1996. So yeah. Yes.
Really keeping bases covered with knowing all the actors as well, which is...
It's a great... Well, look, it's one of those things that I'm always making it very clear to people that there's obviously never preference given to people that I've trained in acting, because I am never the final, as casting director, I'm never the final decider as to who gets cast. Yeah. But I know myself from when I was acting, if you haven't been in front of a camera in the last few months, you are going to be self-conscious and more nervous when you do get the opportunity to audition or screen test, and therefore it's a no-brainer. Also, being able to get people to collaborate together is really profoundly important, and that's been one of the joys of starting those workshops over the last several decades, to see how many filmmakers and directors have ended up collaborating with actors and creating... I mean, we've got one this week where Stevie Cruz-Martin and Daniel Monks did our workshops together, went on and made 10 short films together, then went on and made their first micro-budget feature film together, which has won awards, got into international film festivals, and is having its first screening back here in Perth.
Yes.
And I'm really proud because I was also executive producer on that and casting director. And that was a film that was made with no government funding whatsoever. Yeah. And was made on the smell of an oily rag.
I think we've had a few podcasts now, and out of most of them there's been this general theme of how important, like you're saying, the connection is between the acting community and the film community, because that is literally how we work as actors. If we can't collaborate and have new experiences, and I think especially in today's society, the way the world's changing, we do have to be the driver of our own career. So having these opportunities like PAC, the lab, to come and collaborate, or I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast. I just want to create more connection between people. I think it's amazing. I think it's so important.
And with Perth as well being so small, it is quite important that we all know each other. And I think that, you know, a lot of people book work or everything, you know, keep their experiences alive and stuff by collaborating together and all being very close. And everyone, the saying is, everyone in Perth knows everyone in Perth. So I think it's very important to get, especially for newer actors, to get into that circle. So doing things like Annie's classes, they're really helpful to really get your foot in there.
I think also any creative person is probably going to be enabled to do their best work if they know the people they're collaborating with, or if they have a common sense of vision or points of reference to the people they're working with. And therefore, if directors and actors have already developed a rapport together, it's going to make it easier to work together. It's going to make it more enjoyable, and it's not surprising that directors will often choose to work with actors they've worked with before because they have already that rapport.
And that takes so much time to build. So yeah, it's such a gift. I was literally working with Reg Skulko last night. We're doing a short film at the moment, and I met Reg in your classes.
Yes,
so
and he's still doing them too. Yeah. Really talented Reg. Yeah.
So there you go. It's true. It really does happen. We're so excited to have you for your experience, Annie. But I especially thought it would be useful for people listening to a podcast who are new actors or experienced actors to talk to you about your work as a casting director, and in particular things like, but some people I think don't even understand, like, what is the casting process? Like, what is it? What happens? What is your role and what is our role, and where does it go wrong?
Yeah, what's the common etiquette that sometimes we accidentally overstep?
Yeah. I don't think many actors overstep. I think it's really funny. A lot of people often refer to what I do as being a casting agent, and it's one of those things that it's really funny that I never call myself a casting agent, because an agent receives a commission from what an actor earns.
Yeah.
And an agent is someone who works on behalf of the actor and basically negotiates on your behalf when you get an offer.
Yeah.
I and my colleagues in the industry in Australia call ourselves either casting director or casting consultant, because we work on behalf of the production company, the director or the producer, and our job is to try and help secure the best cast for a project on the budget that they can afford, and in many ways we act, I suppose, as a conduit, because part of what I need to do is be aware of as many actors as possible and the skill of those actors, and to be able to see them in various different things, which is why I go all the time to see actors performing in plays, in short films, and on judge film festivals, etc. And I'm seeing a play tonight in at Black Swan State Theatre Company, all the time becoming more and more familiar all the time with the actors who are around. And so that when there's a project to be cast, I get contacted and sent a copy of the script. I read that and read it several times, and then I meet with the producer and the director in the hope of and in gaining a clear idea of what their vision is, what their aspiration is, and although the project may not be able to afford Hugh Jackman and Cate Blanchett, working out what is important and what will work for that particular project. So getting an idea of their creative vision, and also then being aware of what their financial capacity is and what budget they've got and all of that. And then being able to suggest actors and collaborate with that producer and director who might be suitable for the different roles. And if those actors are well known, or who already have a body of work that you can easily watch their acting on existing films or television series, to send a copy of the script to their agent. And if those high profile actors are interested in the project, then securing a letter of support, which can then help the producers to secure more funding for their projects sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So that can be powerful. But then also for a lot of projects that are shot in Australia, they don't have big budgets, and often they can't afford marquee name actors who could pull box office into the project. And so then it's also about contacting all of the reputable actors' agents and letting them know about the project, the roles we're casting, and requesting that certain actors that the director would like to audition, organise those screen tests and auditions, and run those in whatever way the director would like to run. Then we often do callbacks, or what's sometimes referred to as chemistry reads, where if there are two actors who are shortlisted for lead roles and you want to see how they might interact and how they might work together on screen, bringing them together and doing that callback. And then basically from there helping the final casting to be finalised and down to deal memos and contracts. Does that answer your question? Or what the process is?
Yes, that
Very
answers.
specifically.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Brilliant.
I think that'd be so helpful. When I first decided I wanted to move out of some music and get into screen acting, I had no idea. I didn't know any of that. So just if you're listening, just to know that, or even if you're an experienced person, you may not be aware of all of those steps and the why, particularly when you were talking about, you know, sometimes people getting in these bigger name actors or, you know, the letter of support because it increases their budget. That's a really interesting sort of tidbit of information to know. Because sometimes I think, you know, there's this feeling in Perth where people think that it's always cast with people from Sydney or people that they're known, but perhaps that's part of the reason why, I don't know.
Because people in Sydney potentially have the bigger names sometimes just because they're over there because there is a lot more work, I suppose. Yeah. Not saying that you can't book stuff from Perth, but if you're booking a lot, you probably would be based in Sydney.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting thing, and a lot depends, I think, on who casts a project too. That's why, I mean, I do think that it's useful for me to be based here in WA because it gives me, and this is, you know, it's projects shot in WA that are my interest and what I work on. And because of that, I'm very aware of the actors who are here. I'm also very aware of actors who are around Australia. And the most recent project I cast, which is The Heights, 30-episode TV series that Matchbox Pictures made for the ABC, which I think I can say that there's a second series. Well,
I've heard rumours that there's some auditions in the next couple of months or something. Someone mentioned to me last night they mentioned to me that. So
just don't go harassing Annie because then we'll be in trouble.
Yeah, that is not the way.
At this stage, it's really exciting that the Heights went to air, was really well received, got great reviews and good ratings, and which is wonderful. So in that type of project, it was huge. We had 100 crew work on that.
Wow.
I think there were around about nearly 96 speaking roles that we had made decisions and got approvals for. Some of those roles ended up being cut, so there were a few less in the final 30 episodes, first 30 episodes. But of those, all but 5 actors came from Perth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's extraordinary.
And that's why we're hearing so much about the Heights around Perth, because so many people were on it, and that, I think, created a whole new viewing audience because everyone in Perth was like, we have a friend or a relation on this show, we want to see it. So in a way that was a fresh casting move which maybe increased an audience that might not have engaged so much.
And also this particular project has a huge amount of diversity because the producers, Matchbox Pictures and the ABC executive producers, were very keen for the series to represent modern Australia. And so we had a hugely diverse cast. We had a Persian refugee family, we had a Vietnamese family, an Aboriginal family, a character with cerebral palsy, and I cast an actor who has cerebral palsy. And so each of those, I needed to find people who were authentically from that cultural background. We couldn't cast a Eurasian woman in the 50-year-old Vietnamese mother's role, and there were no 50-year-old Vietnamese actresses in Australia anywhere. I looked everywhere, and so I had to then go to the Vietnamese community and put out the call and then audition lots and lots of Vietnamese women, and we ended up finding a wonderful, talented gal, Karina, who had never acted before, and then I spent several months giving her training because I was acting coach on the series as well.
She's so sassy and sarcastic. I love her. I think she's amazing.
It's so refreshing that things like that, like diverse casting choices, are meaning that people who maybe never would have got the chance to act before are suddenly being pushed into the forefront, and we're seeing all this diversity on screen. It's really refreshing because for so long minorities have been really brushed over our screens. It's like, nah, they don't exist, we're not going to acknowledge that. And now all these actors who potentially 10 years ago might have struggled to get work or maybe even never had their career take off, now they can. And there's that avenue for them. And it's really refreshing. It's great. It's terrible being, Caucasian actors right now, but at least we're not Caucasian straight guys, so we're fine.
Isn't working for me anymore, but that's all right.
But it's okay because we need that shift as well. So it's really
I'm very thankful,
It's very
and I think
refreshing.
it's important for our current society to be represented authentically on screen and on our stories being told, because the same as culturally diverse and racially diverse casting, also diversity in terms of sexual orientation, in terms of disability, all of those things I think are really important as well. And things are starting to shift, because if you are different to perhaps the white Anglo-Saxon background, and you never see yourself represented on screen, it's very hard for you to ever think or aspire to being able to go into a creative field like acting if those roles are never represented.
Well, it feels like you're a minority and you're not wanted, because you look at our screens, which is like our silver screens that we idolise, and you're like, I'm not there. I'm not part of this picture.
It's a missed opportunity as well, though, for the people creating the work, because you're not
engaging your full potential audience.
Well, the idea is to move people, right? And you're missing out on moving like a whole group of people. Like it's madness. I'm glad it's starting to change.
And also, I think, and I must commend Matchbox Pictures, because the projects that they make are fantastic in this area. It also helps to create the possibility of greater harmony in our communities.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we actually see positive representations of people living together and getting on well and helping each other and caring about each other and having compassion, those things have to be positive things, I think, and also be compelling drama.
Yeah, otherwise where do we see these images of people coexisting and getting along? And
I think a lot of the younger generations as well both base their moral code and what they think is normal on stuff that they see on screen.
Yeah.
And so we really need to be painting a good example, because that whole techno obsessed generation is looking up at that, and we could raise either a generation of people that are really going to make a difference, or a generation of monsters, depending on what we show them.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, we were really keen to talk about, in the wake of the whole Me Too movement and things, diversity has shifted in a great way, but so has the fact that now women are having a voice, we understand women's rights more, and how's that affected our creative industry in Perth?
Yeah, look, I think it's profound what has happened in the last few years in relation to the Me Too movement. I also think that it's been long overdue and wonderful that our industry is now becoming far more acutely aware that we have a responsibility and a duty of care to make our work environments as safe as possible and to minimise the risk of sexual harassment. I was really fortunate at the end of last year and earlier this year to have some professional development training with a wonderful woman called Ita O'Brien, an English woman who has, along with other intimacy coordinators, has developed a set of on-set intimacy guidelines. And I went and trained with her to become an intimacy coordinator myself, because I've had a background as an acting coach for decades. And I found this is just such common sense and so valuable. And so these guidelines are now being adopted by various associations in Australia. Already places like Screen Australia, which is the major funding body, government funding body for film and television in Australia, has adopted a code of conduct which requires producers and production companies to provide a safe work environment and to minimise the possibility of sexual harassment. MEAA, the Actors Union, has also adopted guidelines and has policies in relation to sexual harassment, and I'm on the national executive of the Casting Guild of Australia, and we've just recently developed our own anti-sexual harassment policy and guidelines, procedures, and part of that has been also recommending the intimacy on set guidelines as well.
It's crazy that I guess we're so aware of things now, but it just blows my mind that hasn't existed before. How has that not existed before? How have we been doing, especially as an actor, we don't work regular roles. We have to get intimate with people sometimes, kiss, sex scenes, whatever. How has this never been talked about and blocked? And
it's interesting because there are so many cases of people where, it's a fine line when you go too far in those sort of situations. And if there's been nothing in place this whole time, how is anyone supposed to even know that they've crossed it?
Exactly. And so it's all about having a set out procedure that can enable the actors to give consent to where they're comfortable in being touched in the way that an intimate scene might be performed. And it's almost the same as if you had a fight scene, you would have a fight coordinator or a stunt coordinator there for the safety of your actors, and you would choreograph it and you would practice it. Well, very similarly, this is a clear process and procedure where you can, in a very brief, quick and efficient way, work out, okay, where are you comfortable? Are you comfortable if your fellow actor touches your shoulder? Are you comfortable if your fellow actor touches the side of your back? Are you comfortable if we embrace with our chest touching? Are you comfortable? A whole lot of things like that, and very logical, simple things like, if there's kissing, you don't have tongues. You don't, invade the other person's mouth with your tongue. If there are going to be simulated sex where it is as if people are having intercourse, you have intimacy coverings and genitals never ever touch. Just simple things that help to allow the actors a level of comfort and security that they can then trust, and then they can feel comfortable in doing the scene. I mean, I know most actors, and when I was an actor, if you went to, if you were doing a scene and it said, and they kiss, there would be a part of you going, what are we going to do at this point? And, is this, what kind of, and is someone going to freak me out?
And that feeling of, you've just got to go with it, and it needs to be real. So that means we have to be real. And
sometimes directors, I find, can shy away from that as well, or in the past. So it's like, okay, and this part,
just do it yourself.
And then the actors are left kind of like, what do we do? And then it's a horrible feeling, because not only have both, if it's two females, two guys, two girls, a guy and a girl, not only are both actors left feeling vulnerable and panicked.
Yes.
They don't want to cross lines. They're terrified.
Yes.
And no one's there to guide them.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that Ita O'Brien says, that, there's a very fine line between being open and being vulnerable. Being open means that you have a comfort level, you have a trust level, because you have agreed and you know what to expect, and you know how far things can go in what direction, and you don't have to worry at the back of your mind. Being vulnerable is where you aren't comfortable, and where there is a risk of there being a level of feeling abused or feeling exploited. Also, these on-set intimacy guidelines are actually really beneficial, not only for the actors but for the director and for the rest of the crew, because many times crew members also feel acutely uncomfortable if they don't know if something is happening that someone is potentially being exploited or abused as well.
And then they felt they've just sat there and watched it and filmed it potentially and not been aware.
Yeah. And so it's another way of helping everyone feel comfortable. And it also relieves this whole process and protocol that Ita has developed. It takes the onus off the actors from worrying about feeling like they have to expose what their own personal sexual experience is. And it separates it so that it's like a dance, what's happening. Yeah. And your point of reference isn't your own personal sexual experience, but it's about, let's choreograph this like a fight or a dance so that everyone knows what's going on. And it's not something where it's feeling irky or creepy or exploitative. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I wonder, because there'd be directors that, you know, let's say they've adopted these new principles and rules, and then they're choreographing this scene. How would it work? I don't know if you have the answer to this question. If both actors are then attacking, for example, a kissing scene, and the director's like, they just don't like the way they're kissing. What, like, how would they?
Yes.
You mean the director doesn't think it's working?
Yeah, so they're looking at them
you
going,
can adjust it and change it.
So
but with consent.
Yeah.
So that you actually are able to collaborate and negotiate and go, okay, can we do it this? But from what I've noticed and just in putting this protocol into place myself so far, I find that it actually is really useful for scenes, because it gives the actors a sense of comfort that they can live the moment and they can trust and they can and they can be very honest and real without having to have that actors fear at the back of their head of, oh, how is this going to look and where is this? Because it's
in a way they've disconnected themselves emotionally in a way too, so they can look at it from a professional point of view and they can discuss it with the director like
and they
it's
can work
a
out,
scene, and it works.
And they can work out with the director what might work on screen too, like what might work well. And also be aware that if they're doing a scene where there's nudity or partial nudity, they know that there's not going to be some incredibly embarrassing or uncomfortable position of the camera, that's going to make them feel horrible, later on when it goes to air, because these are all part of the guidelines that there are agreed camera setups and stuff like that.
In fact, interestingly, I was reading an article only the other day about an actress in America, thank God not Australia, but she had filmed a production and one of the producers had felt very guilty and said, look, I really think you should insist on seeing the rough cut before it goes to screen. And the way she was depicted, she'd only given but not written consent, unfortunately, to certain parts of her body. They had full frontal nudity, but from the most unflattering angles you could possibly imagine. So it became like a whole case. And I think they lost it. I think, unfortunately, they lost it. And that's a good thing, that things like this mean that can't happen again. And I think that is so important. Because something like that, emotionally, we're emotional beings, and you can sometimes not recover from something like that.
Absolutely.
You can feel scarred.
And traumatised, absolutely.
Exactly.
And look, some of the recent court cases in Australia, I would suggest, wouldn't have happened if there had have been intimacy guidelines established in some of those theatre productions in advance and agreed processes. That a stage manager could be there and aware. Little simple things like, putting in a script and they make love, and then a director saying to two actors, will you go off and work out how you want to do that, is a bit like putting in a script and they sing a song and then saying to the actors, you go and
learn how to
work it out. I mean,
what song?
Exactly. Yeah. And so, part of the guidelines is that you don't ever have just two actors rehearsing a scene on their own. There's always a third person there. There's always someone, so it's professional and not personal. Just some really, really common sense things.
Especially for really method-based actors who are like, well, it's just, I have to be in it. It has to be real, or whatever it is. That's terrifying for someone who's not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I am quite method actually, but for someone who isn't, that would be awful, because
I've
they're
been
just
in situations even where I'm not a very method actor at all. I'm very quite technical in the way I approach a scene, and being in situations with more method actors and feeling very intimidated because. I think as people, we have that facade of we're in charge, we know what we're doing, we're confident, but then you're in a situation, you suddenly feel like it's all sapping away, and it's like,
completely out of
do
control.
I check this, or am I just being irrational? And
so
I think
you felt vulnerable.
Very. And I think the thing with these sort of guidelines is, we're now crossing a line, and we both know that. Like with all the sexual harassment cases and that, some of them I 100% believe that they were probably with malign intention and they're legit. But I'm sure there's some where the proposed person who conducted the sexual harassment did not feel like they were sexually harassing the person because guidelines weren't clear and they didn't know they were crossing a line. So now we don't have that excuse anymore, and it's going to be a lot cleaner.
So it's supportive for men. I feel like
absolutely.
it's a confusing world for men. It is
It
in
is.
some ways. Like the rules are changing, and there's things that they should have known for a long time, and it should have been obvious. But also now they can feel supported and know exactly what to do and where they stand as well.
They
So
know
it's not
their
just about
rights
women.
as well as ours. They know theirs. They can look at it and go, all right.
And they might feel just as vulnerable. I think we
I'm
often
sure.
assume
Absolutely.
that men don't, and they do.
Oh, look, if you're a male actor and you have to play a scene where your character is raping another person, that must be really
Traumatic
could be potentially really upsetting and difficult for the actor to do. And so having this as a way of being able to simply and effectively establish a choreography for that, where people are not feeling vulnerable and they're not feeling in danger of being assaulted or exploited or whatever, is really important, I think, for males and females.
Yeah. Equal rights.
It's wonderful. It really is.
Equality.
Because something that started out about women has now become something that really just protects everyone. And that's what we need. We need a protective, safe environment so that people, because I think a lot of people are now looking at the entertainment industry and going, oh yeah, that industry.
Oh, you want to be an actor?
Exactly. But I think we can now establish that we are an industry that we've got our guidelines, we've got our rights, we're in control, we know what we're doing, and we're just as professional as every other workplace. And I think that's a good thing for our industry as a whole as well.
Absolutely. And, I come, as a casting director, I come from an industry where the kind of decades ago, the joke about the casting couch and, people being exploited for sexual favours and stuff like that. I mean, it's creepy, and I think it's wonderful that our casting guild has gone to the trouble and hired lawyers, etc., to be able to establish our own set of guidelines to help avoid any kind of risk of exploitation in the whole auditioning and casting process as well. I think that's really important.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's,
Well, sorry. You wanted to say something, Bella?
No,
really
in fact,
interrupted
you
you.
say something, because I don't know how much time we have left.
I know,
so.
we are getting to the... Well, we've got a little while.
We do?
I wanted
Wonderful.
to step back. You were just talking about casting again. There's two things. I let the conversation evolve because it was going in a really nice place. I didn't want to interrupt it. But I did want to just step back into casting just for a minute because you mentioned it. But in particular, I think what I would love to know is, can you tell us... we talked about etiquette and what happens in the casting process, but what are some of maybe the behaviours and choices that actors might make in the casting room that prevent them from landing a role, would you say?
Good question. I think the things that I would love to communicate to your viewers and listeners who are actors is for them to remember and remind themselves that when they get a screen test or audition, it's because someone thinks they're right for the role. So the casting director is on their side.
Yeah.
We want you as an actor to do your best possible work because you make us look good then, we want to encourage, enable, support and help you to do a fantastic screen test because then you solve our problem. And our problem is we need to find a wonderful actor who is going to bring this character to life. Now, I often get a sense that actors come to an audition or screen test feeling like they're going into a high school test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely done that.
I feel that's relatable as an
Yeah.
actor, actually.
Yeah. And do you know what? That is not the case. And the more you can take the attitude, today I get to do what I love doing.
Yeah.
Today I get to act. And it's my audition. or my screen test, and I am going to go and claim it. And if I walk into it and I want to do it seated, I'll ask the casting director, do you mind if I do this seated? Or if I want to bring along a good mate to read opposite me, I don't know about other casting directors, but I'm more than happy for you to bring whoever you want to play opposite you. I'm also more than happy for you to bring props that you might want to bring with you. I personally am more than happy to answer any kind of questions in advance that an actor might have about a role or about a project, that if they want clarification before they come for a screen test or interview, because I want you to be fantastic. I want you to do your best work.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a really valuable one to keep in mind. Someone thinks you're right for the part, because we don't want to waste our time or your time by bringing someone in who is not suited. Having said that, there are many, many times we will screen test people and they may not get cast in that role, but I will end up having a conversation about them if they've done a fantastic screen test, because I always remember brilliant screen tests. I try to forget the shitty ones.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's good.
But I always remember the really good ones, and so do producers and directors. And I will often have a conversation with that producer, with my producer or the next producer about, wow, this actor could be great for this other role. Let's consider them. And time again that happens. The other thing that I would say is that for actors to avoid feeling an obsession with what the result might be.
Yeah. Just go in and let it go.
Don't go in wanting to be perfect. Don't go in obsessing about, God, I want this role. Gee, I'd love this role. God, I hope I get this role. Oh, I really want this role. Because if you're obsessing about that,
you won't be in the moment.
You can't be in the moment of the, exactly. You know, you can't live and have the freedom to play and be inventive and be creative and take risks and go for it. Yeah? Now, I used to be an actor, so I know well that we can all know those things intellectually, but it's only with practice makes progress, you know? That you just have to take a moment before you go into a screen test or audition and remind yourself, they are not testing my worth as a human being.
I know, it's so hard.
And they're not even testing a performance, really. They're testing if you're right for the role.
Exactly. They are just trying to see whether you might be suitable and the best option to portray this particular character.
Yeah.
So, of course, you can do things to help your chances. You know, regularly keep your training up, as you two gals do. You know, we never stop learning. I still go and I'm still decades, you know, still going and doing drop-in classes and going and auditing workshops and courses in London when I was there just a couple of weeks ago. You know, I'm continually wanting to keep learning, because I think that's how you keep fresh and you become aware of new ideas and ways. But also, I think allowing yourself the freedom to have fun. If you've got personal issues that are getting in your road, life issues, go and nurture yourself. Go and get some counselling. Be kind to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself, because artists are special, creative people. Particularly actors are being asked to open up and reveal parts of their soul, I think.
Yeah.
And in order to do that in an honest and giving and generous way, you need to nurture that part of yourself.
And know yourself, and know, because if you can't access your experiences in a healthy way, that's what is going to be you're going to bring that out visually anyway.
And you need to know yourself so that you've got, because we all have our own unique selling points. So if we're ourselves on screen, then there's never another one of us. We have our own unique take on something. But if we're just trying to imitate other people, or we're trying to create what we think we'd like to be, it's always going to come across as a contrived performance ultimately, that someone else probably is legitimately that and will by default then do better.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and that's the one thing that's going to set you apart from every other actor is you.
I remember you said that before, and that's one of the things that's locked in my head. I think you said one day, "There's no one as unique as you are," and I was like, "Yes." Why have I never thought of that before?
Walked home, looked in the mirror, and went, "Look at you."
Well, it just makes you think. Well, what is it about me? Who am I, and what? Because you see people walk into a room, and automatically you're like, "Okay, this is the vibe I'm getting from you." And it's not to say you can't play other people, but understanding and knowing your uniqueness is such a gift, isn't it? You know.
Yes.
So,
actually, I have a little question, sort of branching off that. I think as actors, when we start tackling a script, when we're sent it, we obviously read it a few times, start thinking how we could play it, that sort of thing, what tool options there is, what's happening in the scene. And a lot of people, and a lot of coaches especially, have very varying points of view on this. So from a casting director, I was curious. Some coaches say it's written, but you need to sort of go past that, because if you play it on page, it's going to be a stereotypical take that everyone does. But then other people say, but that stereotypical take is potentially why the script was written that way. So do you believe that we should be kind of playing to, it's going to differ to a degree given our own uniqueness, as we were just saying, but really, seeing what is on script and not delving so far beneath that, or trying for our own take on things? Or is that going to backfire in us, giving a performance that is so out of left field and just not what we're after?
Gee, that's a great question, Bella. I think you need to do lots of preparation in allowing yourself to intellectually understand as much as possible about what's going on in the scene, about the character you're playing. Also, doing a bit of research and being aware of the director that you're going to be auditioning for, or who's going to be directing this project, or the production company who are making it, and doing a bit of research in that area. And then I often say to people, start a page or two of questions you want to ask yourself about this character and about this scene and about what's going on. And you won't necessarily have the answers to all of those, but start asking and writing down what the questions are that you're going to start thinking about in relation to it. So that when you go in to do the screen test, you've memorized your lines, but you haven't memorized one set performance. That's really important.
Yeah.
Don't lock in one way of delivering a scene. If anything, think of 5 different ways you might interpret the scene. So that you might go in and initially give whatever you feel is your gut instinct is the most authentic for you to interpret it. But then you then have the capacity to do it in a variety of different ways, depending on what direction you're given.
And I think that's a big one for actors too, when you give us direction, and some people are so set in their perfect performance that they've created in their mind, and you might be like, damn, that's perfect, but I need to see if you can take direction. And then the person goes, oh, and gives you the exact same performance, and you're like, well, damn.
Because you've built those rhythms. It's like a river. You've just built like a rut, and even though you're trying to interpret it, your mouth is just like, this is how we say it, you know?
Actors,
and I will never say something's perfect, because perfect is not what the aim is.
It's practice, it's progress.
And but it's also living it and living it in a way. But the other thing, just recently in London, this has really reminded me, and the thing that I'm going to focus on in our Pack Lab, we have a new series of Pack Labs starting this Thursday night, which is full with a waiting list of people. One thing is that the actors' ability to really listen in the moment. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that we have to keep developing. So we do all the preparation, we do the research so that we have understanding of the backstory, understanding of who these people might be. But then in the moment, in the scene, you have to be able to take in what you're receiving in that scene and listen and honestly respond to what you're getting. Because that will show up on camera if you're not.
It's true.
If you're delivering the performance you prepared at home the night before in your bedroom, then you're not in the moment then, and the camera will see that.
Yeah,
and it would be very obvious from whoever your reader is giving you a certain thing, and then you're snapping back with a completely different tool, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? That didn't warrant that.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see that sometimes. You'll see an actor artificially rev up they'll play an emotional response to something rather than living the moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes smaller and more real is best, because screen, it's all in on the eyes and everything.
Yeah.
So if you're actually believing what you're saying,
or at least
you don't need that, because you can always say if it needs more, but
it's about
overdoing it just
thoughts,
immediately switches you off, because you're like, theatre performance is not going to work for film or TV.
And also, if you're there really listening in the moment, it actually frees you up. It makes it easier, because you are, you get out of your head, and you're actually, there's that energy that happens between you and the other actor that the camera can see in your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not thinking about your responses, you're having them. You're
actually living it. You're living it, so that it's not like you are pre-planning in isolation how you deliver a line or what you respond. And so it allows that every single take will be different, because we never receive exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And it shows your capacity to for spontaneity and being in the moment. Does that answer your question?
Very much so.
Okay, we are getting to the 51-minute mark, which I don't think our listeners will mind, because it's been amazing information.
Been a great podcast.
But I'm aware of our time as humans. So the only thing we haven't, there's a couple of last things to wrap us up. I wanted to talk to you, we were touching on sort of, equal rights in the Me Too movement. And I know you were involved in the WA chapter of the Women in Film and TV.
Yes,
and I just wanted to mention that quickly, or not
lovely.
so quickly, as much as you'd like, about what that is.
I'll just very quickly say, yes, a few years ago when I was working for the Film and Television Institute, FTI, I managed to get together lots of Sisters of Screen, I called it initially, just to bring together females working in the industry, and I co-founded with a couple of other women our West Australian chapter of Women in Film and Television International. We have our own chapter. It's fantastic. It's gone on from strength to strength. And anyone working in the industry, any females can join. Okay. If you join now, because we've now affiliated with the Australian chapter, so we're part of the whole Australian chapter of WIFT. It's only about $45 a year to join.
That's all right.
If you are someone, you can also join if you're not working as an actor or working professionally as a crew or member of the industry. You can join as a friend of WIFT WA as well, and that's even cheaper. And there's lots of events that we run and advocacy for women working in the industry, and it's really important, particularly because women often, particularly women who choose to have families and children, it becomes quite challenging for them working in our industry with long shoot days, with the nature of the industry often is difficult when you've got when you're also a primary carer for children and offspring.
Especially in the initial stages for your breastfeeding, a man just can't do that. I mean, you can express, but there are some things that they just can't do, so that's amazing. If we want to find that, where do we go?
If you just Google Women in Film and Television, Western Australia, WA, you'll find our website. We've also got a Facebook page, and on our website you can actually send in an application to become a member.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. I think Charlotte and I will be doing that as soon as
I was going to say, I think I might actually. Yeah. And then I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about PAC and maybe projects that we should be supporting in Perth right now. Obviously, you were mentioning that you are over everything because that is your toolbox. That is how you know. Well, you know what I mean. That's how you know how to cast people and who to cast, because you're putting all these people into your mind and your toolbox. But I would imagine there's also a lot of projects that you're aware of that need our support, so I'd be interested to hear anything that you might want to mention that we should support.
So perthactorscentre.com.au is the website, and we've got this Thursday night we've got our PAC Lab, which is the directors and actors workshop together. It's full. We've got 7 fantastic directors, filmmakers in that, and 14 fantastic actors in that, and that starts off. That's already full and has been full for a while.
Did you say that was Wednesday or Thursdays?
That's on Thursday night.
Yeah. Okay.
It changes sometimes, doesn't
I know.
it?
I'm waiting for it to be on another night because this year I'm teaching and I'm devastated. But yeah, I'm coming as soon as
We'll
it
get another.
changes.
We have to be in the same one again.
Yeah.
Well, this is where we met, by the way. Just a bit
Oh,
of
in
inside
the back workshop.
info.
Yeah, see what you've created, Eddie.
So this podcast, as you know it, would not have happened.
I love it.
That's very
I love that.
Actually, that's very true because not only between our connection, but you also have a voice over workshop coming, and that really made me want to use my voice more. So
that's so
wonderful.
Yeah. So that one's coming up. That one's not full yet, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So we've got this Thursday night Pack Lab is starting, but it's full. This weekend we've got our screen acting boot camp, which you're coming along to,
there.
and that's full. And we've got 5 people on a waiting list who couldn't get into that. It's been very popular but I really like to keep the numbers, concentrated only to 12 people for that. And then on June 12th, we've got our next Pack voiceover course, and that's on over 6 consecutive Wednesday nights, and the final night is in a professional recording studio.
Oh, so much fun! I can vote for that. I had such a great time, and it's so much more. It's so much more than just voice. It really is. Like, yes, you cover all the technical warm ups and all that sort of stuff, and you work on your voice but I found it's just good generally from an acting perspective as well. And and the studio, I'm getting really excited. The studio, the bit at the end with the in the actual studio was my most nerve-wracking but also favourite part. So
that's wonderful. I'm glad.
Highly recommend.
That's great.
And then my last question to wrap us up, unless there's anything else you wanted to mention that you might have missed.
Only that there's the screening of Pulse, which is the feature film that Stevie Cruz Martin and Daniel Monks made. Micro-budget film, and it's on this Wednesday night at Luna Cinemas, Luna Leederville.
Right.
And we're having a Q&A afterwards with myself and Stevie, who directed it, and Nerelda Jacobs, who is the Channel 10 newsreader, is going to be interviewing us about the film as well afterwards.
Hopefully there's still some tickets available, can't
you? Yes, they're selling fast, but yes, if you go onto Luna Leederville's website or onto our Pack Screen Workshop Facebook page, you can get a link to buy a ticket. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Cool. What was your question?
Our favourite question.
Our last and final question. We've just decided that this is our recurring question. It's how we end every session.
Yeah.
And the question is, what do you wish someone had told you when you first started your career as a creative person?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I feel like I should prepare people.
It is a great question. That never ever give up. Because you will go through times in your creative life where you will have downtimes, where you'll have challenges, but there will always be commensurately up times to balance those. So even if you have crap times, there will be fantastic times. Each year you're in it, it gets easier.
You get stronger, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I do think because you get to a point where the result is about the opportunity to express yourself creatively, and that is more important than fame, glitz, money, likes on Facebook or anything else. I do strongly believe that we're put on this earth, and if you have a creative urge, it's because there's something you need to say to the world. And when you start to work out what that is and how you can honour that, then you add to universal consciousness in a positive way.
Oh,
that's lovely.
Thank you.
Sounds like you girls have worked out what you need to say.
Oh, I don't know. I'm on the path. This is helping, I think. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Honestly, I feel so lucky, and I know Bella feels really lucky.
This session was great. I'm sure our listeners, it's very insightful, and it's good.
Yeah. Thank you. Stay tuned. We've got some more things in the works. Not sure what yet, but there will be more in the works coming up soon. Thank you for listening if you're listening at home, and chat to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
And gals.
Bye, Annie. Thank you so much.